The big fact of this decade or the next years to come is urbanization. So when you look at urbanization, I've got one bad news and one other bad news. The first bad news is that when you look at cities as of today, they just account for 2% of the world territory. They account for 50% of the world population, but they account for roughly 80% of energy consumption on carbon emissions. Then comes the second bad news, is that urbanization is just at the beginning. If you look at the next 40 years, we are going to build as many cities in the world as we've built in the past 4,000 years. 65% of the urbanization to come will happen in Asia. But then when you look at the core is China. In 2025, 1/3 of the top 600 cities of the world will be based in China. 2.5 more billion people will be urbanized in the next coming 40 years. And if we want it to be bearable, livable, acceptable, we need to think cities in a rather different manner. This famous story that if you live in Paris, which is a city where I come from, you will spend 1 year of your life looking for a parking lot. 1 year. If we as a company can reduce that to 2 months, it's a great benefit to humanity. Okay? Then there is reduction in water waste, 15%. 30%, as I said, in energy management is really easy to get just by switching off. So that brings security and savings. Now the big question, when you speak about smart city, people think about that monster IT system that will take control of our life. Actually, those new technologies, the Internet of Things, are really bottom-up technologies. And the conditions of success here is all about putting people first. And I could summarize by saying putting the city, your environment on your mobile. This makes it possible to be community-driven. It's not a big centralized thing, but it can be done by neighborhood, by places, by buildings of people who want together to engage in that kind of approach.
From Schneider Electric experience, how governments in emerging countries like China, India, Indonesia are open or eager to implement like those principles of smart cities?
So I'm speaking about R&D engineers. We've got 45% of our company in Asia-Pac. Dongshang was speaking about the growth rate of TCL. Schneider has been growing exactly the same, 3 times, 10 years, 3 times. I mean, when I see people being critical about the development model of China, I mean, no other country in the world has ever experienced such a development at such a speed, on such a scale. In China, it's because it has developed very fast, because cities are sometimes too polluted. It has become really politically central that they are taking, the government is taking strong measures in that direction. And I would say that probably China is a place where we do the most experimentation with universities, with cities in the world. When you go to India, which is another large country for us, we have roughly 20,000 people in India, the problem is shortages. I mean, the power generation is not enough to support the growth of India. There is the advantage of being the late mover. Designing cities from scratch makes that you have a unique opportunity to think them different. While the West, for instance, has to rebuild cities, which is always much more difficult. So I see more innovation today coming somewhere from new economies. 90% of the urbanization in the next coming years will come from India, China, and Africa. So you know where the big movements are coming from, and you've got to be there.